These people invested their entire life being into identifying and tracking down pedophiles who were leading America's globe and the global elite. And it's Donald Trump and his staff, the supposed hero. And now I'm seeing the word ultimate betrayal
Yeah, oh yeah.
all over the Q spaces.
In many polls, 10 to 15% of white working voters who voted for Trump basically hate him now. And now you're bringing this into it, which is these people that literally worship Trump because they thought he was going to stop what in their mind was based on, along the lines of 15th century superstition and hardwired into their minds about baby, predation and whatever.
Because now the entire history of Donald Trump now has to be rehashed and seen through the lens of, if you don't release those damn files and prove your innocence. There is no you're innocent till proven guilty on this one.
This is Black Man Spy.
Welcome to this week's episode of Black Man Spy. Yet another interesting, fascinating story that we're going to be discussing with the great Cliff Schecter. Cliff Schecter is a Democratic consultant, former ad writer for the Biden 2020 campaign, best-selling author, former syndicated columnist for The Daily Beast and The Guardian, and co-founder of the media firm Blue Amp Strategies. Yes, I am reading it off a piece of paper because even I am not that good to remember that. But I've been on his show several times. He is a great person to discuss this very serious subject with. And we throw in a little levity because discussing the Jeffrey Epstein situation with regards to the Donald Trump White House was brought me to have to write a Substack with the very, very frank and adult title of "Is a Pedophile Leading Our National Security Apparatus?" Worse than that scenario, because there are nations and intelligence agencies and governments now actually having to consider this as part of their foreign policy, their geopolitical standing, their defense standing, and whether Donald Trump is a compromised asset because of his relationship to Jeffrey Epstein. And if that relationship is known outside of a few people inside the White House or Donald Trump himself, he is liable to be compromised. And that means nation states like ex-KGB officer Vladimir Putin can make him dance to their tune if they have access to any of this information. We are now seeing a complete shattering of Donald Trump's MAGA coalition, the fundamentals of which are held together by the QAnon ideology, the belief that liberals were running some cabal, that were kidnapping 300,000 children a year and scaring them and killing them in order to harvest this drug they call adrenochrome. In fact, that is the actual scenario from the kids' movie Monster Inc. Somehow someone, when the QAnon fraud was perpetrated, said that all the liberals, liberal presidents, Hillary Clinton, everybody, Barack Obama, newscasters would all be rounded up and executed for being pedophiles. They are so beholden to this that now they're seeing the person they claimed was secretly exposing these supposed liberal child molesters may in fact be their hero. And this can only be but explosive. And without any further ado, here's Cliff Schecter. Welcome, Cliff Schecter, to Black Man Spy podcast. I'm glad to have you on. This is so much more interesting than doing Substacks and Twitter Spaces because we can see you or we can hear you on Spotify, Twitter, and Apple, and all those great places that we get it. But this is a
Thank
very
you.
serious week. The last 4 podcasts I did, the first one starting with Michael Steele, was loads of fun. We had a grand old time as the Republic was burning down around us. Then
Yes.
it got more serious and darker with Joy Reid. Then Dahlia Lithwick. Jeez Louise.
I
God,
love Dahlia. She's brilliant. But
we should all have just, jumped out a window at the end of that episode, because as we see these trends in the desecration of democracy, I personally, as an intelligence professional, as a career military person, I'm very deeply offended by all of this.
right.
And my last conversation was with Jim Acosta, not one joke made in the whole hour. And I like to joke around because we have
Really,
that
Jim
dark
didn't do
military
it
humor.
because I went on with him and I got him to actually say fuck, which he doesn't usually do it, but I pulled it off. I got him the one time, I went on his show, I don't remember, a month ago or something, and I got him to joke a bit. But you're right, he's a news guy, so he's used
He's
to
a
being,
serious journalist.
yeah, yeah.
And he enlightened me in a very interesting point where he said, as a Latino, and I was like, whoa, wait there, buddy. You're a Latino? He was such a strict, down the line news guy
Right.
and professional journalist. I never considered for a moment what his background was.
You
I
know,
mean, it's a compliment, I hope.
I only picked it up, to be honest. I never thought about it either, but I only picked it up in that great final send off from CNN where he said,
Mm,
probably one of the highlights of my career was being able to question Fidel Castro as my family
right.
came from Cuba. And I said, it reminded me and taught me of one thing: don't ever bow down to a dictator. Ask
That's right.
questions. Like, we all knew who he was talking about at that point, but so that's the first time I knew. I'm like, oh, he's Cuban. I had no idea before that. So,
Well, we are going to start on a very different note now that we've recapped all of my last 5 podcasts.
that's a company
But
I'm in there. I
you,
feel kind of, I feel,
oh,
thank you.
well, listen, I please, for God's sakes, help me, Jesus. Let's get this back to a lighter show. And today's subject, we're going to riff off of a Substack that I just published yesterday, which is very serious. And the title is a pedophile leading America's national security? And it's as plain and as stark as that. The United States government and its apparatus may be, and we're seeing much more evidence and more people coming to testify, is led by a pedophile, maybe, and an system has now changed and more and changed and modified itself to become a series of what could arguably only be said to be pedophile enablers. And they now control 4,500 atomic bombs and all of U.S. intelligence.
Yeah, and I read your piece, by the way, and you were right on. I mean, I would think out of the old mice equation, being a pedophile would be just about the most the thing that you could be the most blackmailed for.
Coercion, right? The letter C in
Right.
MICE,
Yep.
which is money, ideology, co-option, coercion, excitement, or ego. That's a spy's recruiting tool.
Sorry,
And
I
in
should have
this
said
one,
that, but I figured people who watch Black Man Spy, I'm a white man non-spy, but I figured if people who watch your show might already know that. I probably should have laid that out for people because my background, not CIA, but State Department, democracy promotion in Eastern Europe and places like that. And so I know a lot of this stuff not from your, your perspective exactly. But, and the thing about Epstein again is, so, if you, I want to, if you want me to read and people can ask themselves this question, but this was public, right? This is the
Yeah, go ahead.
lawsuit by 13-year-old Katie Johnson,
Mm,
where she ended up suing Donald Trump and then dropping it suspiciously. And she said that he had raped her. And let me make sure I get to the correct passage here, because this will tell you who it is we're dealing with. This is Katie Johnson versus Donald Trump, District Court, DC. And here it is. According to the Johnson lawsuit, quote, during the course of this savage sexual attack, plaintiff Johnson loudly pleaded with Donald Trump to, quote, please wear a condom, unquote. Defendant Trump
Yikes.
responded. Sorry, did you? I should read slower and let you jump in. Did you say? Did you say?
No, it just said yikes.
Yeah, yikes is right. Defendant Trump responded by violently striking plaintiff Johnson in the face with his open hand and screaming that he, quote, would do whatever he wanted as he refused to wear protection. I'll say this too, his gross. I mean, I'm going to try to not keep this gross, but we'll just say after achieving orgasm, Donald Trump, the defendant Donald J. Trump put his suit back on, and when plaintiff Katie Johnson in tears asked defendant Donald Trump what would happen if he impregnated her, defendant Trump grabbed his wallet and threw some money at her and screamed that she should use the money to, quote, get a fucking abortion, unquote. This is a legal filing, and I hope, I'm sorry if that was too rough language for some people, but I'm reading from Katie Johnson's legal filing. Like, we have her legal filing. We have the logs that showed up in this lawsuit that were released. Do we know what Donald Trump did? Did it list Donald Trump did this, Donald Trump did that? It didn't, but it listed, we know he's all over the Epstein files. We don't know what the reasoning is. Here's what else we know. We know that he bragged about it on Howard Stern's show, that one of the reasons he bought these beauty pageants is so he could go sneak in these locker rooms and peek on these 15 and 16-year-old girls while they were changing, which he apparently did regularly. We know that he referred to his own daughter when she was in her teens as, quote, a piece of ass, unquote. I mean, it goes on and on. So, I mean, you've talked about it, and you talked about it in that Epstein thing, that you as an intelligence guy put together, you see the points, right? You're like a beautiful mind. I'm not saying you're, whatever, but like you see that chart. Well, I feel like I'm that way as someone who's a student of history and international affairs. When I see things happening again that I know have happened before in other cultures that have led to fascism, where I see things that I know we've done before, I start, and it's not that hard to put these points together with Trump. I mean, I cannot sit here and say without a doubt that he did the things we're talking about. I can say that a 13-year-old sued him for it, that he referred to at one point to his good pal, Jeffrey Epstein, and like, and he liked those girls young and thought that was a great thing. There's pictures of him at these parties with all these young women around him with him. There's one in my Substack of that piece we wrote on the fact that he's all over the Epstein logs. We know he's all over the Epstein logs. We know he bought beauty pageants for reasons he bragged about. How much evidence how much smoke before there's a fire is what I would say.
I think Trump views this from the perspective that I beat all these stories in the past, and once beaten, and once all of you in MAGA, once all of you in MAGA buy into my version of the world, therefore it no longer has any viability. It doesn't exist. And that this was brought up years ago. And of course, Donald Trump is a person who is now suffering, as Mary Trump puts it, narcissistic injury. Right?
That's correct.
The meta narrative, the story that he has woven using, using his gold laced magic, spindle, all right, which is weaving the Trump story, is now being found out by his followers, right? That the Pied Piper's tune doesn't work, principally because, and this is where I need to give the audience a bit of a background. In my last book, They Want to Kill Americans, the malicious, terrorist, and deranged ideology.
I like how you dance around it and you don't really go straight to the point, Malcolm. That's what I appreciate about you.
But no, it's a title that we are finding out has been validated.
All of your books are outstanding. I just like to joke with you too because you've got a good sense of humor.
Look, when we're in this skiff, right? I actually do have a skiff in my home. So I'm not in it right now, but this is I have a man skiff, and
a man skiff.
I don't have a man cave. I have a man skiff.
That's hilarious.
And the thing is that in that book, I go through the details of QAnon ideology. Right. And the entirety concept of QAnon, which was a story, like a puzzle game that was done by this father-son duo who lived in the Philippines that were doing this game theory stuff, pretending to be deep state intelligence operatives from a secret group in Northern Virginia, and dropping breadcrumbs because that the Democratic Party, Hollywood, liberals, were an elite cabal of child rapist pedophiles.
Right. Like that
That's what
basement
the
in the
story
pizza
was.
place, except for there was no basement there. Right.
And look at the characters who did that. What's his name? Jack Posobiec, right? I use Pisobiec because he was kicked out of the Navy
You should
because
just use
of,
it because of his personality. But yeah, I agree.
well, no, because he was made urinalysis officer when the Navy was kicking him out and took his top secret clearance away
I
from
did
him
not know that. Oh,
for
thank you for
3
that piece
months.
of
And
information. Whenever
that
he
is
attacks
how,
me, I'm going to ask if he wants to, if I should give him some urine, that he can look at it and let me know how I'm doing.
if you look him up, that's right. And not just the color, by the way. You need to find out whether you're taking THC. And you need, and as we say in the Navy, must have a clear view of the stream. So Jack Posobiec was the guy while on in the Navy, a cryptologic officer, and
Yep.
went to Comic Ping Pong and created Pizzagate, saying he was taking videos of doors leading to underground dungeons where Hillary Clinton was keeping children, and it led 2 days later to a armed hostage
Yeah.
barricade by a crazy guy who came in to rescue the children that
Right.
were in this underground dungeon. The place was built on a slab, by the way,
The pizza place,
and
right? Comet
the
Pizza
pizza
or
place,
whatever it's
Comet
called. Yeah.
Ping Pong. And this led to, I mean, QAnon exploded after this
Yeah.
story. And QAnon's whole theory was that Democrats were eating children, were scaring them, torturing them, so that at the moment of death, this was the nuts thing. The moment of death, they would create a chemical called adrenochrome in their system. Then you could kill them, take adrenochrome. And this is the story they said.
Sounds like a Ron Paul newsletter.
It will pretty much. But they were saying this was Hillary Clinton was taking this to stay, I shit you not, immortal.
Right.
And they were showing before and after photographs of her, like Hillary tired, Hillary looking like a 28-year-old. Crazy. These people
Yes.
got Donald Trump elected. And in my book, They Want to Kill Americans, I talk about how QAnon transitioned. They are the real nuts. I mean, really batshit
and
crazy
didn't Michael,
people.
can you tell me this? I mean, some people I've seen have even theorized that Michael Flynn sort of took
General
on
Michael Flynn
the
might have.
persona of Q, but he certainly helped push all of that stuff. He would do
Oh, he pushed Q.
Yeah.
Mike Flynn. Well, I don't think it's because of what Jim Stewart and some of these other guys
That's
say
what I
that
was
he had
thinking about. What Jim
crafted
Stewart.
it up. No, because I read the Q drops, and it's very clear the person involved in that had no idea of how intelligence or the national security apparatus even spoke, much less would write a memo or a drop. Mike Flynn did, but
Right.
Mike Flynn saw the power of their nuttiness
Right.
and found that they were the most fervent Trump supporters. What's Michael Chesley, right? The QAnon shaman,
Yep.
painted his face up and wore horns and and stormed the Capitol.
I mean, you
just
can't
like
invent this stuff. Like if you wrote a novel, the guy with the Camp Auschwitz T-shirt. I mean, like
right.
like they and can I make that connection for a second?
Yeah, sure.
Because it's someone they let me say quickly, they of course ginned all of this up, this paranoia conspiracy that they knew was there, and Trump plays into, and the far right plays into. I have the book up there behind me that I always keep. There's my touchstone, Richard Hofstadter's The Paranoid Style in American Politics. They play directly in that, but I'm going to go further into history. Okay, my theory always behind why when they lost school desegregation as an issue, which was their big issue, that they would turn out the base. Do you want blacks going to school with you? Jerry Falwell and all of them would do that. When that was decided, Brown versus Board, after that, you'll see in the 70s, abortion becomes an issue. Before that, evangelicals actually favored abortion. It was only Catholics who were against it.
Mm-hmm.
And my theory has always been, and that this goes to their attacks on trans kids. The other thing right now, what we're talking about with QAnon and the pedophilia stuff, is it all sources from successful, like 15th, like Middle Ages, passion plays and blood libel against Jews, which was the easiest thing to sell, which is those people that are different, those liberal, whatever. And it's very easy now to be like Jews, liberal, cosmopolitan, and generalize to all Democrats, right? That we're all like that. that they would say if the well would go dry in the town, this is why a lot of my family left Odessa and left places like that to come to this country. The well went dry. It's the devilish Jews who are drinking the blood of our babies. That was always what they said. They're killing our babies. They're poisoning them. And they would go to a couple of Jewish houses, beat the crap out of people, maybe kill them, steal the belongings, and then they might do it again the next week or the next month. I have always thought that the baby killer stuff that they started saying from abortion stemmed from that, because they knew it would play into the psyche of Christians versus liberals who hate children, Jews, this, that, blacks who are criminals. I'm talking about all this from their perspective, obviously.
Right.
And then we also got the pedophilia stuff. They're hurting, they're trying to cut off body parts from kids with all the made up crap about.
You make a good point here, because I note this in my book that blood libel, the original one, stemmed from a medieval incident in which a boy was found killed I want to say it was in France or Germany. A boy was found killed, and then the word was out. Jews were killing these children for the blood of Christians, and it burned around Europe. Arguably the first Q drop, right? I mean, granted, anti-Semitism had been going on the 12 tribes of Israel.
Of course, it'd been going on forever, but it became where they, as you know, and I don't
supercharged.
Yes, and they would hold these passion plays, where they would show Christ being tortured and dragged through the streets, and the Jews would all have like huge noses, put on, and all the kinds of things like that. And they would point out that this was the fault of Jews, and everybody get riled up in town and be like, they want to take the blood from our children. They go kill. I mean, this is how so many families like mine ended up here, and so I really do think they knew that was in the DNA of a lot of specifically religious Christians, and who were the base of the Republican Party, who's we know damn well never could give a crap about the things they say they care about, right? Bill Clinton was horrible for his relationships outside of marriage, but Donald Trump, 5 kids, 3 women. So this was the core. And QAnon. Go ahead.
You really flubbed that one. He has 3 baby mamas, 5 children with 3 baby mamas.
What did I say?
5 kids with 3 women. No. You gotta meta narrative this guy. This guy's the ultimate welfare queen, right?
Yes.
Welfare king.
Well, and we're not including porn stars and
5 children from 3 baby mamas, right? So sorry, but in this show, we like to make sure the framework around our opponents is easy to digest and remember. But
you know why? Because you understand, as a guy who was an information officer and understands what I was saying, earlier off camera to you about various psyops and whatever and disinformation, that what the Democratic Party is finally getting better at. Gavin Newsom seems to be trolling them and leading some of the charge now, but we've been so terrible at that. I've been screaming about for 20 years. Make it simple, make it repetitive, have a narrative framework about who they are,
Absolutely.
and then every message will fit into that. Look at Nixon's, abortion, acid, and amnesty as his description of the Democratic Party back then, which is why I now say, I when I talk about them, I talk about them as, as criminal, corrupt, and incompetent, or some sort of combination of things of that nature. Because if you put that all together, you come out with them. So,
well, I leading back onto the blood libel and the QAnon thing. QAnon, set this whole chain in motion that the meta narrative would be liberals were pedophiles. And all throughout the campaign of last year, you kept hearing it. You pedo this. And then as
remember
you would see,
the made up Biden in the shower with like his knee?
Right. And and Biden touching children. They would take random photos. And then we would look and you would see on Twitter, there would be these mass photo shoots of the last 100 days, people that were arrested for pedophilia. Sheriffs, church counselors, priests.
Always right-wingers, always religious.
Right-wing evangelicals who were doing all this stuff. And they literally took that frame of pedophiles, hung it around the liberals' neck. And the problem is that people of good faith, people of goodwill, don't fight back against that because they go, "Oh, that's just ridiculous,"
It's
right?
always hard to have like and this is where I think you and I are the same and we're different, which is I've always said, I mean, this, not the nicest person, but I will do anything for friends, for whatever. I have a family I love, and all of that. And I will go out of my way and all this and whatever. But people need to be able to turn that off when it comes to political warfare. And when it comes to political warfare, that side of me disappears and I become the meanest son of a bitch that you ever want.
Right.
I will call you out for anything. I will go after you for anything because again, this is how they've chosen. They have chosen to refer to us as pedophiles, as non-humans, as others, as whatever. And if you do not hit back on that level, if you do the stuff, I'm sorry, I'm going to name somebody that Dick Durbin does, and said, which is why I'm so glad he's leaving. And he ran the Senate Judiciary Committee. How did Clarence Thomas never get subpoenaed? I mean,
Right.
Like the stuff where we're above that. We don't do that. No. And I'm sorry, I love Michelle Obama. But when they go low, we need to go even lower and kick them in the ankles. Like if you go high and they go low, you lose because low wins. I can't,
their lowest point though was characterizing all Democrats as pedophiles.
Oh,
and it was our wanting to maintain goodwill and always trying to be above the fray that allowed them to keep this narrative. Trump, I wrote about this after the January 6th insurrection.
Yes.
QAnon had died, or let me put down, MAGA died down. QAnon was being suppressed by the Trump camp to the point at Trump rallies, you weren't allowed to wear a Q t-shirt. Right? You weren't allowed. Yep. They were selling it outside, but you weren't allowed to wear it in.
Yeah. The vendors, right.
It took 6 months. I had predicted in my book that it would take 18 months. In fact, it took by July of 2021,
crazy
2020, that QAnon took over the Republican Party platform. And that platform was simply this: liberals are pedophiles, and we're going to tear down their world. Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, Bill Gates, Rob Reiner. Where did they come up with that guy? I love Rob. He's something like that. But
anybody they think has influence or money on the left, going after Planned Parenthood, Acorn, they've always had trial lawyers. They've had a systematic plan where if there's money, organizing, or anything on the left, they go after it. So they would they were going to get to those figures you're talking about.
And that's why they drafted this meta narrative, which is the most horrible thing you could call a person, right?
Of course.
It's nuclear war in politics to call someone a pedophile. It's nuclear war. There's no way to walk it back. There's no way to discuss it civilly. For me, that's a throw down and fight situation.
No, you have to. It's outside. That's the whole point, is that it's at that point that they're authoritarians. In a democratic society, you have to have things that you can debate in good faith with either the other party, or if you're a multi-party system, other parties. If you're saying about the other party, they're all pedophiles. What's there to debate at that point when they're making that kind of an accusation?
Well, in the intelligence community I come, which is the National Security Agency, we saw talk like this preceding genocides. And there's a technical term for this in NSA, in the intelligence collection, signals intelligence world: eliminationist rhetoric.
Yes.
And that's when we saw last year, we even saw people like Pam Bondi and others saying that they want the death penalty for pedophiles.
Right. I mean,
in anticipation of the storm, right? In anticipation of them doing the day of the rope, which is hanging liberals from street lights. And now it's
also part of how they always project what they're doing. I mean, again, there are a couple of key things people need to know here, which right away. All right. One, and again, this is where I agree with you, and I'll say this quickly, but the reason I get so angry and rip the living crap constantly at it and write a lot about our corporate media failures is they are the organization, they are the entity, or whatever you want to call them, that shows up in the First Amendment of our Constitution, that because they are necessary. They're not necessary to tell us what the hell Kim Kardashian's up to. They're necessary to root out liars and corruption and let people know truths. And if you're not willing to give people context, so think about this for a second, and I'll say this stuff quickly because it's pretty easy to say. You've got a Republican Party and their base, QAnon, who's calling all Democrats pedophiles. While we know the stuff that Donald Trump admitted about going into beauty pageants and stuff like that. He said that publicly. 15-year-olds, 16-year-olds, all this kind of stuff. The longest-serving Republican House Speaker, Denny
Oh my God,
went to
Pastor.
prison for fondling 15 and 14-year-old boys.
He was sleeping with pages.
Yes,
right?
Longest-serving Republican House Speaker. Okay, and this only what happened where he went to prison a couple of years before Donald Trump ran. Jim Jordan, who was at Ohio State, I am here in Cincinnati, an hour and a half from there. A wrestler got up. If everybody hasn't seen that testimony, this wrestler getting up and talking about Jim Jordan called me. He got up and he testified in the Ohio House. Called me, begging, crying, telling me to say my brother was a liar, and he meant his actual brother was on the wrestling.
Yeah, was molested by the staff. Staff doctor.
Yeah, I mean, he's been called out by wrestlers and at least one referee who saw the stuff going on in the showers, and another wrestling coach who was there. He said, of course, Jim Jordan knew. And the third one, Matt Gaetz, who they're going to make AG, who's a guy who still, if I'm correct, is he's still being investigated for trafficking underage girls. So the fact that the mainstream media and Democratic weakness, and as you said, that we're people of goodwill, but we're failing then, sits there as these guys call us pedophiles when you know all four of the things, Trump, Hastert, Jordan, and Gaetz that I just said, is a massive failure.
Record scratch. Lauren Boebert today or yesterday said that there should be an internal investigation. There should be a special counsel. And she recommended Matt Gaetz for that job. And Trump, he was Trump's first pick for attorney general. Because obviously, when you want to recruit an agent, right, you want someone who you can do, one, you have the goods on them. Two, ritualistic self-humiliation. They must debase themselves in front of you and ask forgiveness. And then you own their souls like Darth Vader, right?
Yep.
Using the force to choke at your compliance out of you. But Trump generally doesn't have to say a word. They know that that's going on.
And have you seen Gaetz on TV?
Yeah,
I mean, I've just seen clips because obviously it's whatever that stupid channel is. It's not even Newsmax; it's the one below that.
OANN
or whatever.
One American News.
And he's been defending and saying there's nothing there. Defending Bondi, like he's one of the ones on Trump's side because he knows where all this leads to. I mean, as a son of a prominent real estate developer in Pensacola and that whole area. Would any of us be shocked if Maddie's dad or Matt ended up on that list? I mean,
jeez.
He's the perfect guy because we know he's being investigated for it already. There's a hell of a chance he's actually on there, or his dad is. So that's why he as the independent counsel, that's perfect. I'm an astronaut, and I mean, while we're coming up with jokes,
titles,
yeah. In any case, you're exactly right. I mean, the Republican Party, and remember, was it Mark Foley who was hitting on the male congressional?
Right.
They have been knee deep in this crap for 2-3 decades now, probably more, but since I've been doing politics. And again, yet they are the ones who are trying to project it onto us, and they always knew. And the interesting thing about this is, I'll admit it to you, Malcolm, I thought they'd all let him off the hook here too, but I think all of these nuts, these that we've talked about, some of them already, and some of the other ones who came out against him on this so far, like Laura Ingraham and Musk, who he's been fighting with, and Alex Jones, they have either weaved such conspiracies themselves, they've trapped themselves in their own conspiracies and realized they can't exonerate Trump, or their shows, notice they're all entertainers for the most part, they'll be destroyed. Because they'll lose their base because they've trained them that there are all these pedophiles and that the Epstein files. I mean, Don Jr. was saying release the files, and JD Vance. All these guys are on video from a year ago. Release the files. So
guys like Kash Patel and Dan Bongino, These guys were making bank.
Yes.
Okay, let me tell you something. You and I don't make a fraction
No.
in subscriptions that Cash Patel, when he had his three-letter symbol KSH with the S being a dollar sign, that cash money, right?
Was that when he
These
wore those
guys,
ridiculous like cowboy boots and looked like a
oh my
complete
God,
idiot?
those
I mean,
that gay
that's
leather
cringe for.
power bottom costume that he wore.
Oh,
It's on my
thank you for
Twitter,
that,
guys.
by the
Don't
way.
ask us
Yes.
about it. It's terrible. But and you know, Dan Bongino, these guys were brought on because they made millions as podcasters,
Yep.
swearing that they would dismantle the Democratic pedophile machine that they invented in their own minds. These guys are the living definition of grifters. They saw what people wanted to hear. They jumped onto the bandwagon, led the bandwagon, got put into positions of power, and now America and QAnon is at an oh shit moment.
Right. And Dan is
Because
there too. That's why he won't give up on Bondi. Bongino is still like he's fighting it because he realizes too. He's trained all of his people, his listeners, that this is an absolute truth.
This is it.
The Epstein
Yeah,
files,
they're gonna.
it's the Da Vinci Code of democratic pedophilia. You have to see it. Bill
But
Clinton's in there
QAnon,
and Hillary Clinton's in there, and hell, they probably have like Grover Cleveland in there. They're going every Democrat that can fit in there. I mean, if you look back, Grover Cleveland did have a weird younger relationship. But in any case, that's my weird history knowledge here. He has been dead for a while. That doesn't stop them from putting him in there because they've probably got everybody they can call a liberal or a Democrat or anything. And that's the thing is I thought they might be able to get out of this too, but it seems that this was the uniting issue. They got like frothed up the craziest of their base members on that they're trapped.
But you recall that the thing that QAnon wanted the most, and they thought January 6th was their philosophy of the storm. The storm, which was really a takeoff from the old book, the Turner Diaries.
I was going to say that's from the neo-Nazi ideology.
Right, from the neo-Nazi ideology, the Turner Diaries of the Day of the Lamp, in which the storm, Der Sturm, was supposed, which, by the way, name of the neo-Nazi American newspaper, the Sturmer, Der Stürmer, right? The old Nazi brown shirts newspaper, Der Stürmer. And now these guys, the QAnons, took the storm to be the day that the Republicans, led by Donald Trump. By the way, QAnon ideology believed Donald Trump was the white hat who had taken over government to root out the deep state pedophiles.
A godlike figure. I mean,
and to expose. Yeah, well, didn't they call him Geotus? Geotus, God Emperor of the United States. Jeez. That was an official QAnon phrase. There's t-shirts you can buy on Etsy with that on it. But these people also believe they were moving 300,000 children underground every year and facilities called deep underground military bunkers, DUMBs.
Right. And too, the way the right, this, Malcolm, the way the right, again, is so much better than we are about coordinating all this stuff. So it's cultural, it's political. They had that jackass guy who's a lunatic make the movie Save the Children or whatever.
The guy who turned out to be a pedophile.
The one that played Jesus in Passion of the Christ, because Mel Gibson's also crazy. I can't think of his name right now, but he was in that. He helped produce it. He was in that movie, and like all of the producers of that movies, it turned out were trafficking kids. It's insane. The projection.
The guy it was based on, who was running that organization in Latin America, the charge against him was they have video of him massaging an underage girl, like 13-year-old girl's chest.
Jesus.
And his admission that he watched thousands of hours of child porn to get boned up on. Oh my God, horrible.
He probably got boned up. I don't know if we want to talk about that.
My point being this, I want to bring this QAnon thing full circle.
Yep.
These people invested their entire life being into identifying and tracking down pedophiles who were leading America's globe and the global elite. And it's Donald Trump and his staff, the supposed hero. And now I'm seeing the word ultimate betrayal
Yeah, oh yeah.
all over the Q spaces.
They're burning the MAGA hats. I mean,
Oh,
like, you've seen
jeez.
these videos. They're not, I mean, I wish the left were better at creating sort of stuff like that to false flag, not in a violent way, but in
Oh,
a, you
there's
know,
no way.
but
Our committee would
we're
still
too
be meeting
weak
8
and too
years later.
good. We're too nice to do that. So these
Yes.
things are legit, and they're. I mean, yeah. I mean, they finally found something. Look, they'd been losing various other members of their base. The tariffs, which have killed. On my show that I do at 2 p.m. on Substack today, which I've had you on, we're going to have the
Mm,
candidate who's running against Tom Cotton in Arkansas. She's going to be talking about
mm.
all these farmers who have lost, their farms because of Trump. Oh, we're only going to deport criminals. They've deported everybody. These farms are empty. We saw what they did to that farm in California the other day. People aren't going to work. And so
Right.
they've already destroyed farmers. They've destroyed ranchers. They've fired all these government workers, not just in D.C., like all these people thought, because, of course, they think D.C., they think themselves blacks, Jews, whatever. No, around the country where they're different. It's crazy, right? But in national parks, the
Right.
people that work for them actually live around the country. They've fired all of them. So you have all these
Right.
people already from their base angry at them about that, who have turned on them, right? In many polls, 10 to 15% of white working voters who voted for Trump basically hate him now. And now you're bringing this into it, which is these people that literally worship Trump because they thought he was going to stop what in their mind was based on, along the lines of 15th century superstition and hardwired into their minds about baby, predation and whatever that never wasn't going on the Democratic. I mean, I'm sure there's some individual Democrats, but no mass conspiracy, no whatever. If there's a conspiracy, it seems to much more be on the Republican side when you start recounting the guys that have done this stuff. And now
Yeah, well,
it's been exposed.
but now that we've gotten to this controversy, I don't want to say controversy. This is existential
Yeah.
for Donald Trump. And which is why I wrote in that article, is a pedophile leading the national security apparatus, not just leading it, right?
Yeah.
Enabling this thing to where now, if any truth comes out of this, because now the entire history of Donald Trump now has to be rehashed and seen through the lens of, if you don't release those damn files and prove your innocence. There is no you're innocent until proven guilty on this one. Now
Now,
Trump is guilty, firing Maureen Comey, the woman who successfully prosecuted Jeffrey Epstein, by saying, "Oh, well, she's with Jim Comey's daughter." So, and P. Diddy, right, two of the biggest molesters out there. It's like Trump is either panicked or
yeah.
he is so inured with the belief that he is a god, and that the words that he says, like he said, what do you call his followers this week, right?
Yep.
Idiots,
That's right.
or
Idiot. Yeah. It was some of that morons, idiots, something like that. I
but
do. I mean, I think it's a combination of he may believe that he's a god. I mean, he clearly always has had a huge problem in terms of, like, I don't even think the latest DSM book can outline the level of narcissism that Trump reaches. It's probably never happened almost in recorded history. So you look at that. I mean, I'm exaggerating, but okay, he's such a
not
crazy
really.
narcissist, and so he could be doing it and saying, I'm a god. And we have to remember, clearly there's dementia going on there. And people can
Yes.
try to deny it on whatever. It's clear.
It's clear.
So there's that. Or, as you said, he's panicking. I think it could be some of both. I think he can have moments. He seems to swing back and forth where he thinks, I'm a god, nothing can happen to me. And then he seems to freak out and go fire somebody,
Right. Yeah, to himself, I'm not a god. I had better do something to distract. And, this whole Rosie O'Donnell thing, the firing of Comey, all of these things. But now I throw this in air quotes every time, an attorney general who is now theoretically a pedophile enabler, who is an enabler of his, whatever is going on here. And this harks back to his original days. Every scrap of everything he has ever said about Epstein, all the photos, all the videos, all the testimony, what you read at the beginning of this, I would never, ever have allowed that on this show until this week. All
Well,
right,
I have a
the suit
hard time.
was withdrawn, but now within the context
Right.
of everything that's going on, it lends into. Don't tell me people aren't going to hunt that person down and get the inside
And that's the
story.
only reason, again, that I would read that, because it's I'm not reading it like it's a case going on right now. It is in the context. If you're trying to explain, do we think Donald Trump did the worst of the worst things? When it came to Epstein, you need to look at all the evidence. You need to look at how much time he was around Epstein and young women. You need to look at that lawsuit. You need to look at comments he made about women changing at these pageants. You need to look at comments he made about his young daughter. You need to look at that he admired Epstein because Epstein liked young women. Like it's all relevant. And I wouldn't have read that, frankly. I had a hard time even reading it because it's so disgusting. And so it makes you angry and sickened and everything of this. But I mean, it just goes back
But
to
it
again.
also puts. I think what it does here is that it reframes Donald Trump's sexual predation. That
Yes.
he was such a sexual predator, 25 credible lawsuits. He's been adjudicated as a rapist. He is a rapist
Yep.
as far as the law is concerned. He is, not to mention his other insatiable appetite for felonies, fraud. Again, the most documented liar in American history. Documented
Right.
thus far. And we still don't know what happened. And that was only the first 4 years. There's been 6 other years where he lied.
I don't think
So-
we know the half of what Donald Trump has done. I mean, and he's already
right.
the worst person probably to ever live in America, outside of
Donald
like
Trump
serial killers, maybe.
you're right, is being reframed. And the meta narrative is not coming from liberal America. The meta narrative amongst liberal America, which I'm seeing now amongst the Democrats, is QAnon ideology. Let it all out. Let it all out. Let us see who was doing this. This is what QAnon was saying for years, hoping, praying it was Hillary Clinton, Bill Clinton, that they'd be taken to Guantanamo and given summary executions. That's what QAnon said. Now we are being straight and honest and fair and saying, we don't care who it is, right? I
Because
remember
the
there's a
difference between
joke.
us and them is we may have a party we prefer, and obviously the one that stands up for democracy right now, but we actually believe in democracy, in our republic,
Right.
in the rule of law. So if there are Democrats in there, and I know these drones on the right just can't understand the concept, but the concept, it's a simple concept. If you believe in democracy, I don't want to protect if there are Democrats and they did horrible things, I want them in prison. Like, I'm
Right.
sorry, this isn't partisan. Like, everything is for them.
Right. But then again, Donald Trump, now the reframing of every word he's ever said is now going to come out as a lie. The reframing of everything that he said about Hillary Clinton and Bill Clinton is, and all these things, the lock him up, hang him, is now going to be put around his neck as a noose, not by us, but by the QAnon people who have, over those years, it became whoever, right? The global cabal. And now they feel as if Trump was the pedophile they were always looking for, and he's lying to us. And, I suspect that MAGA is going to break down 30-70, right? 30% are going to be going to get at him with hammer and tong because they're just QAnon crazies. 70% will comply. They will flip on the narrative. We saw, what's his name, Charlie Kirk and others doing this. If you support Trump, the most amazing 6 months that's ever happened,
Right.
the greatest economy in American history, just superlative, insane lies just today in the last 24 hours.
North
and now
Korea
Lauren
kind of crap.
Boebert,
I mean, yeah.
Oh yeah. Lauren Boebert coming out and saying she wants Matt Getz to do this. Now we're in the world of controlled opposition, right? Where somebody has said, you need to gain control of this right now. And the way we do it is we control the investigation, find that lawfully and legally you are, clearly most sincerely dead, right? That this story is not true. And a child molester himself who's been indicted or has been implicated by this has cleared Donald Trump, Matt Gaetz. And to Republicans, that'll be like, okay, good enough.
Yeah, no, I mean, the vast majority of them, that's exactly right. We need, every lever of power. I mean, I think it's worth shutting the Senate down over. I think it's worth every state attorney general. That's I mean, state attorneys general can do a lot, can prosecute a lot, and we have attorneys general in some of the biggest states with the largest populations in the country. Get out there, get working, get talking to people, get investigating. You know,
that brings me to this last question. Okay, end game here. Okay, this is Cliff's warfighting strategy, lawfare, democracy defense strategy for dealing with this. And you say step one is what's that again? Attorney generals?
I would say attorneys general. I would have them from a number of states joining a joint lawsuit to get this released and also investigate their own states. I would have whatever levers of power we control in the federal government, which aren't many, but we do have the ability in the Senate to shut things down, even in the House to a degree, because they've got such a small majority, and to pressure Republicans who are in some of these swing districts. There are a couple left, enough to change the majority in the House. I think we need to go. We should be advertising, having protesters show up at everything in those districts. Same thing with the Senate. I would, on top of that, we need to be one. I know it's hard for Democrats, coordinated on message. Your show, my show, other people's shows. We need to be talking about this constantly, talking about what it is in the way that you and I just laid it out, because it's a simple story. If people, if you can lay it out easily, and we had a No Kings Day. You helped promote the hell out of that. Maybe we should have a no pedophile President's Day. It's even alliterative, and we could. I don't know, but we should do something to show the massive protest that this needs to be a real investigation. But you're an intelligence guy, so I'd love to hear if you have other ideas on that.
Well, I have a whole slew of ideas, but this is your day to do that. As you know, I'm associated with a new political action committee called FAFO PAC, right?
Yes, I do know that.
Which does not actually stand for F around and find out. It stands for focused action with focused objectives.
But I love it because it still sounds like it does sound, well done with the brand.
FAFO. So, but we have some ideas, right? Meta-narrative. I'm a big fan, as an information warfare person, of meta-narrative seizing the big framework that's been drafted thus far. Their framework was liberal elite pedophiles.
Yep.
Our framework should be, we have now exposed, with your assistance, that there was a conservative Donald Trump oligarch elite pedophiles that are everywhere. And now you know what this will do. If it turns out to be a fraction true, just a fraction true, global news media is going to start going around. They're going to start hunting down oligarch ships, the girls that are going on them. I mean, at one point there was a great ex-CIA officer that's turned novelist who was tracking the Russian oligarch yachts. Right. And it's nothing to take pictures of who's on these things. Right. You can fly drones over them. And, and we need to expose that there is. My Substack article talks about a 14-year-old girl. The first person I ever saw trafficked in this world
in Italy
was a Russian.
We started talking about. I read that. That was
a Soviet. Right. They were from a cruise ship, the first cruise ship that ever left the Soviet Union, and went to Italy, and they were selling trinkets. They were selling teenage girls too on the pier, and only if it wasn't for the intervention of the Carabinieri, the old guy who bought her from her grandmother would have taken her onto the ship, had sex with her, and it would have gone on until they left port. So these things are real. They
are real, and they tend to be in, like cloistered, oligarchic, wealthy. And I would tell you, there's also, again, a lot. The proof has not come out, so I'll just say it has been accused that Peter Thiel likes them young.
Wait. I believe is Peter Thiel's gay, if I'm not mistaken.
He is, but he likes his men as. Let's just say he likes his men not to have become men yet, is what the accusation is.
Help me, Jesus.
And there is at least one young guy in Miami who came out and said that. So who moved away to get apparently away from him. So my point is, is that in these types of areas with no transparency, it's why authoritarian governments, it happens, whatever, no transparency, wealthy
Right.
guys. So I would say the meta narrative needs to be turned, and we need to look into every single Trumper at the top there. And I bet we'll find some things that we didn't even know were going on that would horrify us, honestly.
You know what? And because I wrote in one of my books, Plot to Destroy Democracy. There is a what I call a globogarchy, a global oligarchy.
There is.
There's a level of money out there. I always give this litmus test. About 25, 30 years ago, there was a small port in Spain, still a relatively small place called Puerto Banús. And if you've never heard of it, you don't have money.
Right.
You've never heard of it. And if
Now,
you
I don't
have
have the
heard of
kind of
it,
money nor the interest in what they're doing.
if you don't have a helicopter pad on your ship, you weren't allowed in to
Sure.
that port. And so there are other secret ports in Mallorca, Palador, all these other places where if you don't have a mega yacht with a helipad and a permanently assigned helicopter crew, you just aren't at that point. This is a space where you never carry your passport. Your staff does all that for you. You don't go through customs. Your staff goes through customs for you. You may have to walk past the customs officer, but that money can move anything:
Right.
weapons, drugs, people. And look, Democrats are too poor to be involved in that world. Let's just be honest. But and also, we're not in these traditional roles where you have people of trust, school teachers, youth pastors is like youth pastor and
God.
sheriff this year, sheriff deputy and youth pastor in 2025 is
That-
almost, it's like being a Catholic priest 20 years ago.
I was going to say,
You know you're getting
or a Cub
molested.
Scout leader back in the day.
Yeah, you know you're getting molested because it's about access to those people. So amongst the global oligarchy, the globogarchy, if we were really a serious, sincere nation, the intelligence community would be tracking oligarch vessels.
Of course.
We did at one point. We would track some vessels which were associated with drug smuggling and things like that. But if you really wanted to go after the global pedophile rings, that are out there. We know they're out there. You'd be hitting the richest ports in the world, and you'd be taking down Russian, French, Italian, whoever the oligarchs are that are now marionetting Donald Trump. But see, he isn't of that oligarchy. The problem with Trump
No.
is he never had enough money
I
to
know.
join that set.
Even when
And
he had it like
Epstein
in
was
assets,
supposed
he
to.
always had the debt. He never was them. He always dreamt of being them, but he never was.
Right, but now he does. He's making $1 billion illicit
I know.
dollars a month as president of the United States.
Right.
And so this now, us turning the spotlight, thank you, QAnon, and really Elon Musk, right? The richest man in the world dropped the dime on his ass, is now turned the spotlight on his entire history. And bottom line, what do you know, I think this is a black hole to which there is no escape. What do you think the end game is going to be? You got three options: resignation, 25th Amendment, impeachment, or a heroic hamburger that causes his sudden and most timely death.
Oh, that hamburger, the best hamburger of all time. The greatest, the best. Okay, I'll stop. I think I don't see him ever resigning because of who he is. You know, we know what his personality is like. I think it's going to get to the point where it's either going to be one of the other two options. And I think impeachment is the more likely one because the folks he's put in the cabinet are loyal to him to a large degree, whereas the folks who are in Congress are loyal to him as long as he has the voters. And if MAGA folks start breaking away and hating him and they have an opening to break from him because most of them can't stand him, like
JD Vance
can't stand him, I think it ends up being impeachment.
Well, there's 67% now.
Yeah.
67% said that they want those files released at all costs. No, I think it's 80% want it released at all costs. 67% feel that no one should be allowed to serve if they're implicated in this. So
and I think a majority of Republicans, if I'm correct, were in that. I think in the end, this takes away enough of the MAGA base that they've massively turned him. He's already lost others from other things we've talked about. I think that it ends up being impeachment because McConnell came very close, and he screwed us by not doing it after the insurrection because he was going back and forth about whether it would benefit Republicans or not. I think you're going to see here clearly with how much Trump's going to lose people because when this comes out, that they're going to have to dump him.
Now that I talk to you, there are actually two more scenarios that would be end state scenarios, as crazy as they sound. One would
Trump
be
goes and stays in a 5th floor hotel room in Moscow.
no, that's not even viable.
No, I know.
One that is viable is that Trump dives headfirst into full scale authoritarianism and dictatorship, where he goes, "That's it, screw you." Dissolving Congress,
Right.
dissolving this. These will not be investigated. I am now in charge. ICE starts acting as a paramilitary force, right? Where they become the Praetorian Guard of
Which
the
I can see.
presidency.
But you
So
know
this
this
is the
more than me.
full Idi Amin.
But what does the CIA and what like regular folks there, and what do the military do if he does that?
Yeah,
That's
see the problem with that brings up that's the last resort. If you've ever seen, there was an old TV show called Last Resort
Yep.
with Kenneth what's the name? Branagh, the black guy who recently passed. He plays a submarine captain, and if you watch the news stories in the back, the president is about to be overthrown. The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, the Joint Chiefs have no confidence in him. A 100% impeachment is coming, and he orders the submarine to nuke Karachi, Pakistan. And you're like, whoa, Andre Brana. And that's a last resort scenario. So that's a fifth scenario, is that Trump goes full dictator and just decides he will redesign power. He will become Nero. Sixth scenario is a little more fun and apocryphal, is that Trump grabs the service weapon of a Secret Service and does a hostage barricade with J.D. Vance in the Oval Office until he can get free passage to Moscow.
Does J.D. Vance dress up like a baby in this, or no?
Well, I don't know what goes on in the Oval Office. You never know. So, okay, those scenarios aside, but three of them are viable.
I mean, I can see the full
impeachment's
fascism one,
possible.
impeachment, and I can see 25th. I don't think the 25th happens because I think they're cowards and they're scared of him, and he's appointed them. I do think impeachment is very viable, and I do think, sadly, his calling on a full dictatorship. But I actually do not. I mean, you know this stuff better than me, so you can tell me you think I'm wrong. I do not believe military generals will go along with it. I don't.
No, they won't. They won't. But that would take us to a new place in American history.
Well, I don't want to be at that place. But I mean, again, I wrote it in my piece on Rome, having been there, all about if people, had used the term crossing the Rubicon and didn't know what that meant. If Trump started bringing soldiers into cities over immigration, posse comitatus, that was, Caesar crossing the Rubicon and ending democracy in Rome. Well, I don't want to be in that place, but if this guy locks himself up with his Praetorian Guard protecting him, I don't really know what the hell else we can do. You know what I mean? So I hope that's not where this ends.
Well, there is one last scenario before we leave the skiff here today. And that's the possibility, which falls under going full dictatorship, but which is the last resort scenario, where he orders us to nuke Natanz nuclear enrichment facility, because we're finding out now this week that U.S. intelligence has assessed that 2 of the 3 facilities are not destroyed and will be back in operation shortly. And that's Isfahan, which is deeper underground than Natanz was, and Natanz. So this is, Fordu. Natanz, I believe, is destroyed. But this is one of those scenarios where he could do that. And he'll go, oh, for the first time since World War II, the only way we could guarantee Iran is not going to do it. And Trump will say, we've determined they were at breakthrough. They were about to detonate an atomic bomb for test purposes, and I was forced to nuke.
And then, sadly, for all the idiots out there I know, and there's too many of them, people who I come into contact with, they're like, I didn't like Trump, I don't like him, but he was the lesser of 2 evils or whatever. I'm like, do you know anything about democracy? I mean, you've met these people before, right? Well, sadly for them, there's no doubt in my mind Trump would try to do that because he has no concept of human life. The issue is, again, will these guys carry that order out? and I'm going to hope that they won't. You know.
Well, in fact, go watch the TV show The Last Resort. That's what Andre Brana, as the black submarine ballistic missile submarine captain, refuses to nuke Karachi, Pakistan,
Right.
because the message system he's getting his orders on means the United States is destroyed. And then he calls the Secretary of Defense and he says, this network's not supposed to be here. You're not supposed to be alive. And I'm watching Hannah Montana on television, and you're ordering me to nuke a city of 6 million people. And then they relieve him of his command, and he refuses and takes the submarine and becomes his own independent.
Well, that's what we have to hope for. Remember, it was one courageous, and I know you know this better, Russian, who was told to launch when there were some seagulls or whatever the hell it was that was making them think that 1982, 83, that one nuke, singular nuke, had been launched at them. And of course, he being willing to stand up to his commanders and also being smart was like, the United States wouldn't launch one nuke at us. They'd launch, and he refused to do it. And that's why we're all still alive. So we have to hope there's somebody there with that kind of, wherewithal and strength.
Well, we are certainly in a bizarre world. I would have preferred House of Cards level, just the guy murdering somebody just straight up. But, we have to answer this tough question: is our national security in the hands of someone who may be a pedophile and surrounded by enablers who will try to wash through this?
And I sadly think the answer to that question is very likely, and we're going to know with all the other points we discussed, and we're going to know for sure probably relatively soon.
This is so ridiculous. We did get some laughs out of it. Thank you, Cliff.
We have to. I mean, if I don't laugh, I'll just cry all the time. I can't believe that this is where we are. So thank you, Malcolm, for having me on.
Yeah. Well, Black Man Spy is the place to come. I'm going to open the skiff door now. You can go out and have a coffee and recover your phone. So thanks again. And I will see you on your show.
Yeah, we'll have you on again soon, like maybe in the next week or two when you're back home.
All right. Okay.
All right. Thanks a lot, buddy.
Well, that ends this week's episode of Black Man Spy. I'm sorry we even had to bring it to you, but we did, because we do need to have these adult conversations, even within the context of geopolitics, espionage, and government. So with that, please subscribe to Malcolm Nance at Substack.com. If you'd like to read that article, it's free to subscribe. You can become a paid subscriber if you want to join in on the conversation. You can find me also, Black Man Spy, on YouTube. On your YouTube channel, you can subscribe to watch my videos discussing that, and watching this video if you're listening to it on Apple, Stitcher, or other places fine podcasts are served. So thank you for coming to this week's Black Man Spy. I will see you on the beach.